Hi, I'm Dhruv Agrawal. I'm the CEO of Aether Biomedical. We're a company based out of Poznan in Poland with about 55 people building bionic limbs for upper limb amputees.
Tell us a bit about yourself, how you got here, and what does the company do?
Absolutely. So I'm Dhruv Agrawal. I'm the CEO of Aether Biomedical. We are a company based out of Poznan in Poland, and we make bionic limbs for upper limb amputees. The journey of the company has been quite interesting. You know, I had nothing to do with bionic limbs growing up. I don't really have any amputee friends, so I cannot really tell you any story like that. But it all started with me going to medical school back in 2016 or so. My dad gifted me a 3D printer for my 18th birthday. I was always much more interested in the technological side of medicine rather than the clinical side of it. So I started playing around with the printer and building some basic prosthetic devices based on some open source designs, and that's where the journey started of this company.
And how did you come up with the idea of, moving to Poland out of all places?
I mean, the honest answer is at that point of time, we were just looking for anybody who would give us money because, we were two 18-year-olds with not really a good enough idea of what we are doing. And so nobody really wanted to give us any money. No VC wanted to touch us. And luckily, we got a $50,000 grant from the Polish government, the Poland Prize program. And we were actually one of the first startups to come to Poland through that program back in 2018. And they decided that this is an amazing place to be and to build a startup in.
I know that you're still going on the notion of building, a startup from almost across an ocean. So your co-founder is not based in here, not even in Europe, but still in India. So how do you manage this relationship that's been going on for years now?
Yeah, I mean, it's been going on for years. We've known each other for more than 10 years now, and our relationship definitely has had its ups and downs. But I would say the things that have really helped me manage that relationship is, number one, finding a clear understanding of what the two of us are good at individually, and then focusing and doubling down on that so that we have a shared respect for each other. We understand that what the other person does is very crucial for the business, and I can't do what he can and he can't do what I can. So when you find that understanding and that language of respect between yourself and your co-founder, it doesn't matter whether he's in a different time zone or a different country or whatever. So I would say that is the main positive, that we have been able to find that language and build a relationship based on that.
So let's talk about the Aether for a little bit. I'm really excited about startups with tangible products because it's easy to imagine a story behind them. Now that you've said you don't have any background in prosthetics, can you tell us a bit more about how this product came to be and how it evolved over the years?
Yeah, definitely. So, we started with building some basic devices just out of curiosity. Luckily, my background in medicine does help here, although prosthetics are much more on the technical aspect of things, or mechanical, electronics, robotics, those types of things. But there is a clinical component that is, of course, very important that I did have because of going to medical school. Initially, when we started the company, when we were thinking about what exactly are we building, we had a completely wrong problem statement that we wanted to solve, because we were like, yeah, prosthetics are expensive. I'm going to build something that is 10 times cheaper and everybody will want to buy that. And that was how we initially started. But as we got close to launching that product in the market, as we got a better understanding of what people really want, and as we listened to the customers and understood the pain points that they are having, we built a much better knowledge base of what should a good prosthetic hand look like and what does the market need right now. So it has always been about iterating over and over and over again until you make sure that you solve the real pain points of the customer. So yeah, that's how the process has been like.
I imagine that your first client must have been quite something for the history of company. Like, you build a product and then, finally somebody buys it. Can you tell us a bit about, how this affected you guys? Like, was there any sort of an aha moment when you first sold the product, and did it change, the way you approach building it?
I mean, the first time we fitted our hand to a patient, that was in Poland at a prosthetic clinic in Krakow. And at that point, when we had launched this product, we were proud of it, but we were ashamed of it at the same time. It's a weird feeling to explain. And you're right, there was this aha moment of like, hey, somebody is using a prosthetic hand that a group of 8, 9 guys built. So that was a really cool thing about it. But on the flip side, that also motivated us to really question ourselves of, is this the best that we can do? Or can we do something better? Because we are building things that people are going to depend on. And that's really what propelled the company forward, is making sure that me as a founder, our founding team, our engineers always ask that question of, is this the best we can do, and what more can we give back to people?
This is a very interesting point, and I think it really matters to the overarching theme of the product market fit. How do you manage this feeling of fear and shame, when it comes to, building, in your mind, probably the best product, you can, but then getting some feedback from the market, before you learn that, okay, this is it, we built something great. Like, how do you manage this, whirlwind of feelings around, okay, we're excited, but at the same time we are ashamed?
I mean, this is one thing which I've really learned from my co-founder is, as an entrepreneur, you really have to throw away the part of your brain which houses the shame gland or whatever. Because when we go to conferences sometimes and things like that, we see somebody that we want to approach. I'm generally hesitant and trying to be professional and stuff. And he will just go straight to the person, start talking to him. Doesn't matter if the person is in a conversation or drinking or eating or whatever. He just has absolutely no inhibitions. And that's great because, he's able to get the information that we actually need. And so that is something that I've really learned from him, is to make sure that we are able to really put that part of our, feeling aside, that should I ask that question? Should I approach him? Should I approach her? And so on and so on. And the thing is, in the field of startups, as you are raising money, you're going to get said, hundreds of people are going to say no to you. So somehow you just get that resilience of just like asking again and asking again and again and again.
So you put your shame away, basically.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Now let's talk about the proverbial product market fit. Like, I really loved the story that you shared in an interview, or was it TED Talk, really, where you said at some point you had a product that you deemed really cool, only to learn that you probably won't go with this product into the market. Can you tell us a bit more about your thinking there, like, and how did you, basically kill your baby that, then and there?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So we started with the version 1 of the product back in 2018 when we started the company. And when we launched the product for the first time, we realized that it was a decent product, but we had not really solved any of the core customer problems. It was just like any other prosthetic hand, just 10% cheaper. And that's not a good enough rationale for selling a new product or bringing a new product into the market. So as we got feedback from the market, we understood that there are actual pain points that exist across the different devices that are in the market right now. And at that point, we had to make a decision of like, do we continue with what we have gotten in our hand right now, or just try to push that into sales, or do we try to make those changes and use the remaining capital that we have to get to a point where we can build something that is based on the feedback that we've gotten, but that would mean delaying the start of sales process. We chose to make sure that we build a product that customer really, really wants, that solves the real problem. And that's what we ended up doing. So some of the main features that make our product really good today are things that did not even exist in the first version of product that we launched. These are all things that, in fact, the customers told us, it will be great if the hand had more strength. It will be great if I could repair it on site, because otherwise I'm spending 4 to 6 weeks waiting for a hand. It will be great if I can connect with the prosthetic device when the patient is sitting in his home, because I can see if the patient is actually using the hand or not. So all these were questions or challenges or needs or wants that were put forward in front of us by the customer. And we, I think, made a very good decision of listening to those and making sure that we make changes in the product and not just push something that has already been built.
Knowing your backstory, it's hard to not ask about the global mindset. It's kind of obvious, you hauling from India, building in Poland, but selling to international customers. especially in the US. But can you tell us a bit about how does a company like yours, how does a startup building in hardware prepare for being a global company from day one, especially around the limitation of being physically present and having to build something real?
I mean, the first thing I would say is just not to stress too much about the variations between different markets and things like that. Of course, you need to prepare yourself for the differences that exist in different markets, but as long as you're solving the right problems, you will find a way. So, and a great example would be when we started with the launch in the US market, we initially realized that Europe is not a great market to start the launch with. We will come back to that market later, but we need to start with US because that's one large market, 350 million people, single regulatory system, single reimbursement system. I'm oversimplifying, but still much easier and much bigger to access than Europe. But when we started the launch in the market, it was during the pandemic, so it was not allowed for European citizens to actually go to the US. So what we ended up doing was and we really wanted to attend a conference that was supposed to be the launch of the product in the market. So what we ended up doing was getting two guys from US to come to Europe, training them, sending them back, and then hiring a tele robot, which was like an iPad on wheels for that conference. And I was able to virtually attend that conference like that. So continue focusing on doing the unconventional, which the large corporates, the big companies are never even going to think of, right? As long as you make sure that you follow the unconventional pathway and you do your proper research on the different markets, I don't think there's any big difference in between the different markets or being a company with a single market or 10 markets and so on and so on.
And how do you define the right problems to solve? What are the, tools of the trade in order to realize this is the problem that you should go after?
I mean, that's definitely a really, really hard question to answer, because if there was a clear answer to that question, the world would be completely different. No startup would ever fail. So it's a hard question to answer. But on the other hand, there are indicators that you can look at. So you definitely want to solve a problem that's not just a customer's want, but it's a customer's need. That there's a big differentiation there of like somebody wanting something and somebody really needing something. So you need to be able to classify whether the problem that you're solving, is that a want or is that a need. So in our case, the local level repairability that we have built, where you can service the prosthetic device at the level of the clinic rather than having to send it back to us as a manufacturer, is a clear example of a problem that we found that's a real need, because we saw that prosthetic hands generally have a dropout rate of 40-45%, which means half the patients who adopt these devices or get access to these devices stop using them within a few months. The number one reason that we found behind why patients would stop using these devices was these devices would break often. And when these devices would break, it would take weeks and weeks to get them repaired. Now you've got 6 weeks where the patient does not have access to their device. They learn how to live a life without that device. And even when they get that device back, they are never using that again. So we of course tried to make our product as strong as possible, but we accepted that prosthetic hands are going to break, similar to your human hands. So what we rather did was reimagined the process of what happens after a device breaks. So you don't need to send it back to us. We send the spare part to you and you repair that within 30 minutes. So now we took that repair time, which was a 6-week time frame, down to 30 minutes of patient coming in with a broken hand and going back to home with a fixed hand. And we solved a multitude of problems here, going back to the main problem of prosthetic hands, or people drop out of using prosthetic hands for 40% of the time. So if you really go to the core problem that's a need of the customer and solve that, then you will know that you're solving the right thing.
Even though it's a difficult question, I think you've managed, to answer it pretty well, at least for your company. But were there any moments in the history of Aether where you felt like you can't get there? like you done, maybe before you found the right problem to solve, where you doubted yourself, and how did you overcome this problem?
I mean, there were many such moments. You can imagine when we first launched our product after raising all that capital and getting down into the market and realizing that, oh, what I have built is something that nobody wants or needs, or specifically that nobody needs. Having that cold water in your face was really a question mark moment for us. So I would count that as one of those key moments. Of course, going through multiple rounds of funding. Again, I was an 18-year-old medical school dropout, had no understanding of how to build a financial model or a pitch deck or anything like that. So every single fundraising round felt like that. Of course, I've gotten much better at it. I've gotten into an attitude of we will handle whatever happens now. But at the beginning, that first quarter of $1 million that we raised was like the hardest thing that I've done in terms of a pure uphill battle. So yeah, there have been moments like this throughout the history of the company.
And do you think it's worth it in the end for as a founder?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, you just build you build so much character by being a founder, right? Like there are things that for now I feel like, oh, these are simple things, raising another $250,000. We were just talking about it right now that like we might do another round of $1.5 million or 2 million. 6 years ago I would not have spoken to you with such confidence by saying, okay, we'll think about raising another $1.5 million or 2, or we're thinking about launching a new product, or we're thinking about getting to tens of millions of dollars in revenue. I would not have uttered those things 7 years ago because I just didn't had that confidence in me. And the last 7 years, they have built this confidence in me of whatever happens, I'm going to deal with it and I'm going to get to the other side of it.
Perfect. Dhruv, thank you so much for taking the time and talking to us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks.